Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and last night the Philadelphia Eagles served us yet another loss as they fell to the Seattle Seahawks 23-17 in a loss that, for me, kind of kept me on my toes, even though there wasn't much offensive production. You have to admit, the Philadelphia Eagles defense is really just electric to watch. Last night, they played with a chip on their shoulders, and that was apparent from start to finish. From the very first Seahawks drive yesterday, the Eagles defense said to Russell Wilson and his squad, "We are not going to make this easy on you. You are not going to roll right over us." I mean, Rodney McLeod was making statements on defense from the very start. He was giving some pretty hard and demanding hits on DK Metcalf starting very early in the game. I was also really happy with the performances from TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton right off the bat. I felt both of them were pretty consistent throughout the game, and they were both constantly involved in making plays. I think that for me, watching the Eagles stop the Seattle Seahawks on fourth down of their first drive, basically on the goal line, I think that was my favorite part of the season so far. The Eagles defense came out just hot from the start. They sent a message that they're not going away. No matter what, I don't see the Eagles defense giving up, letting up, no matter what happens in the next few weeks. I don't see the Eagles defense letting up whatsoever. So they sent a message with their play yesterday. It's important to note that before yesterday, the Seattle Seahawks were 7 for 9 on fourth down conversions, third in the NFL. And the Eagles defense made it happen on the very first drive. I also like to think that the Eagles defense's intensity and apparent and total willingness to want to win this game, I think that was also a message to the Eagles offense, and that maybe the Eagles defense is tired of trying to hold their own and hold this team in the game week after week, as the Eagles offense does practically nothing throughout the game. So a big thing that we were all watching for last night, and just has to be talked about today, is the Darius Slay DK Metcalf matchup. It's always a little bit tough and a little bit of a touchy subject every time we face off against DK Metcalf, because we could have had DK Metcalf. We passed up DK Metcalf in the draft for JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So yeah, we definitely have reason to be a little bit salty about our decisions in the front office and that draft decision. But I just think overall we were actually really excited to see Darius Slay match up against Metcalf and how he would match up, and what he would do in the game, how many stops he would make. I was pretty excited personally. And to be completely honest, I really can't decide my feelings on how I think Darius Slay played. Personally, I don't think it was horrible, but also when you look at his stats, when you look on paper, you can't say that Darius Slay played a great game whatsoever against DK Metcalf. Last night, DK Metcalf set a Seattle Seahawks franchise record for yards in a Monday Night Football game with 177 yards. Darius Slay also gave up a season high of yardage against himself with Metcalf's 177 yards and 10 receptions. So looking at these stats and looking on paper, you can't say that Darius Slay had a good game. If anything, you might look on the stat book and look on paper and be like, dang, Metcalf totally ran up on Darius Slay. But this is where I'm kind of torn, because watching the game, to me, there was no lack of effort on Darius Slay's part. I think that he was focused. I think he gave 100% effort. I think he was gritty playing against DK Metcalf. I think he looked like he took his matchup pretty seriously. I think that that's something that he took, maybe a little bit on a personal level. Like, I'm the one on this team who was chosen to defend DK Metcalf, and I'm going to make sure you know why I was chosen. That's kind of the intensity and the vibe that I was getting for him out there. He had a chip on his shoulder, and he wanted people to know that that's why he was chosen to defend DK Metcalf, one of the top wide receivers in the league. But at the same time, I mean, let's face it, you also gave up 177 yards and 10 receptions. You can't have those kind of numbers and be a top corner in the league. So this is where I just get a little bit torn, because granted, there were some times that Darius Slay got absolutely cooked in the long ball coverage, but there was also some catches by Metcalf that were just phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a freak of nature. He is one of the best wide receivers we have seen in, I think, a while. He's just so big. He's so quick. He's so strong. And I think he's fundamentally sound. He just makes plays and catches that, I felt that Darius Slay at times was playing textbook defense and Metcalf was still able to make the play. I think that goes to just show how unbelievably talented Metcalf is. And like I said, what a freak of nature, and how, athletic this guy is. But I know I'm a big hustle person. I'm a big 100%. I'm a gritty person. That's what I like to see from my team. And I think that Darius Slay showed that last night. So I think that I'm a little bit torn in that, because yes, his statistics against Metcalf weren't completely there, but I do think that the hustle and the effort was there. So I don't know. I'm totally torn on that. So now let's move on to talk about the Eagles' offense. And I just can't imagine how frustrated I would be if I was a member of the defense. I mean, to start the game, the Eagles go 3 and out 5 times in a row. There's no rest for the defense when that happens. And the defense was playing at 110% yesterday. So I'm actually really surprised, and I give total creds to the Eagles defense for being able to play at such a high intensity level for a pretty decent amount of time with absolutely no rest. If you look at the Eagles' first 5 drives, they picked up 4 yards. They actually had more drives than they did yards. You can't expect a defense, I don't think that you can expect a defense to keep playing at such a high level when their offense is not giving them anything in return. I'm hoping, and I actually kind of expect the Eagles defense to continue to play at this high level, but the offense isn't giving them anything. Just mentioned the Eagles' first 5 drives, they picked up 4 yards. The Eagles in the first half, they finished with 74 yards, which is the fewest yards picked up in the first half for the Eagles in 30 games. This is just so frustrating as a fan. I could only imagine as a player to have this kind of production on offense. A big thing that needs to be talked about is Carson Wentz's accuracy in the passing game. It's been a consistent issue throughout the season, but he is just constantly overthrowing. He's missing plays. He's overthrowing, underthrowing. He's just not accurate in the passing game, which probably totally adds to his 15 turnovers by week 12. But let's look at this crazy statistic. 23% of all Carson Wentz's passes are off target. That is the highest percentage in the league. For 23% of your passes to be off target and be a franchise quarterback, I don't know where that falls. Is that the coach's fault? Is that Carson Wentz's fault? I just think that his inconsistency is totally affecting our offense. So where you move from here, I'm hoping that it's something that they deal with in practice. This has been something that's been a consistent issue. So I'm hoping that they're not now just realizing like, oh my gosh, wow, that Carson Wentz really isn't that accurate. Like, no, he's been pretty inaccurate. So he's totally inconsistent, but he's not the only part of our offense that's inconsistent. The Eagles' offensive line last night was the 10th different offensive line combination of the season. In a statistic by John Clark of NBC Sports of Philadelphia, the last time a team has seen this many O-line combinations was the 1987 Buccaneers. 33 years ago was the last time a team has seen so many offensive line adjustments. And I understand that injuries are a part of the game and the Philadelphia Eagles are just prone to them for some reason. But you can't say that this lack of consistency on the O-line has no effect on offensive production. You know, it affects Wentz, it affects running backs, it just affects so many different parts of the offense and their production. Talking about the offensive line, Wentz was sacked 6 times last night for a loss of 41 yards. Wentz has been sacked a total of 46 times this season and counting, which means the offensive line is directly making an impact on our offense, on our quarterback, on our season. You know, you can't have our quarterback being sacked 46 times in 12 games and expect him also to be playing at such a high level. I know that I'm kind of, you know, not being totally clear with where I stand about Carson Wentz when I say that, but yes, I'm frustrated with Carson Wentz 100%. I think that he needs to be playing better. I think that he needs to be more accurate. I think he needs to undertake, I don't want to say more responsibility because it's clear in press conferences that he does take on a lot, but also a lot needs to be talked about the offensive line. Carson Wentz is being sacked 46 times. He leads the league in quarterbacks sacked. So there's just a lot that goes into our offensive production, and it doesn't just have to do with Carson Wentz. It doesn't just have to do with the offensive line. It also, there's one factor that has been more impeding every single week, and to me, it's Doug Peterson. His decision to go for the 4th down in the 4th quarter as opposed to going for the field goal is not something I agree with at all. I think that was a decision that cost us the game. I don't think it was the right one. And I think it put the flow of the game, hear me out, more on the offense as opposed to the defense. So just hear me out. You know, it's 4th and 4. Carson Wentz throws a pick on this decision to go for it. I have no idea who he's looking at. There's totally a disconnect. Not sure if Goddard ran the wrong route or Wentz was searching for something that wasn't there. But Carson Wentz should have never thrown that pass regardless. But Carson Wentz's decision, you know, that doesn't fall on Doug Peterson, what he did. But I do think that the decision to go for it, it 100% falls on Doug Peterson. There's 8 minutes and 40 seconds left, and we're down 11 points with the scoreboard reading 20-9. I say let's kick the short field goal, try to go 3 and out on defense, and then have 5 to 6 minutes to try to control the game on offense and get a touchdown in an attempt to tie it up. I think that by going for it, I think that actually puts, you know, more control, for lack of a better word, in the offense's hand. I think that the Eagles' defense was a total dominating factor for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think what you do is you kick the field goal and then you let the Eagles defense go to work and you say, look, we need you to win this game to go 3 and out or make a quick stop against the Seahawks and we'll get the ball back and we got to score. But by saying, okay, we're going to trust our offense to score right now because we needed that score. And then the Eagles defense, you know, you'll go out, do your work, and then we'll score. Well, then we just need a field goal. I think that actually puts the game flow in the wrong set of hands. The Eagles offense had done nothing all game, and then you're kind of now trusting them with not the game-winning play, but kind of we needed that play to win the game. As opposed to, you know, like I said, just letting them kick the field goal and then telling defense, to win this game, we need you to make a big stop. I think you kind of put the dependency of the game in the wrong hands with that decision last night. I think one more thing that we need to talk about with Doug Peterson is his decision to play or not play Jalen Hurts. Make the decision, either play him or don't play him. Putting him in for 1 or 2 snaps is not helping anybody. I think that it's ridiculous. I don't think it really makes sense. If you want to stick with Carson Wentz, stick with Carson Wentz. Don't be in limbo or having people be like, oh, wow, you know, Jalen Hurts is the answer. He completed a pass to Alshon Jeffrey, and then take him out right away and then not let us see him again. I just think at that point, don't even put him in. So, I don't know. I just think that overall, the Eagles' offense does not leave me hopeful, does not make me feel good about our possibility of making the playoffs. And I just really don't feel confident saying that our offense could take us to the playoffs. So I think that's something that we need to obviously watch throughout the next couple of weeks. But I'm losing confidence in the Eagles as of right now. So now let's catch up with the rest of the NFC East. Sunday, the Giants took down the Cincinnati Bengals 19-17. Giants quarterback Daniel Jones left the game in the second half with a hamstring injury. Jones had an MRI on his hamstring yesterday, but yesterday Giants head coach Joe Judge said, quote, "There are actually more question marks than answers right now, to be honest," end quote. So there's not a lot of clarity on the extent of Daniel Jones' injury. I think that not having a clear answer after an MRI is a little doesn't make me feel hopeful for Daniel Jones. I'm not really sure what the next step is for his injury, but there's clearly no answers right now towards his injury. So the Giants right now are tied for first place with the Washington football team, with both teams having a 4-7 record. The Washington football team bumped their record from 3-7 to 4-7 on Thanksgiving Day after defeating the Dallas Cowboys 41-16. Alex Smith finished 19 for 26 with 149 yards, and the Cowboys' Andy Dalton was 25 for 35 with 215 yards. Both quarterbacks threw for 1 interception and 1 touchdown. Now looking ahead to next week as the Eagles look to take on the Green Bay Packers, I think defensively, keep it up. Keep that chip on your shoulder. Keep acting like you have something to prove. Play with your heart. Play with grit. I love the way that you're playing right now. Keep it up. There isn't really too much I would change, and I think that if we can take the energy from yesterday and channel it towards Aaron Rodgers and his Packers, I'm excited for Sunday night, and I'm excited to see what the Eagles defense can do. Offensively, Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz need to work on Wentz's accuracy. This is most definitely a problem that we have seen throughout the season, and I think that it needs to be keyed in on this week. Get extra reps. Doug Peterson really needs to work with him on that. And a final thing offensively is the offensive line needs to better protect Wentz. The guy under center cannot be taking hits like that throughout the game, throughout the season, and I think that needs to be a focus as well heading into next week against the Packers. Well, that's going to do it this week for That Philly Sports Girl. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.